hello, gang, and welcome back to Two Girls with the Case. As always, I'm Dohi Summer.
I'm Marissa.
And let me just say apologies for the delayed uploads, okay? We are getting it together. Mostly me. I am getting it together. But we are back with the juicy case tonight. Let me cut my fan off real quick because I don't want it to interrupt. All right, so I want to strongly put a trigger warning in this case. It deals with young girls. I call them babies. I call a lot of kids babies, but it deals with that and around that nature. So if things like rape and brutalization and things like that, like trigger you, please do not watch past this part because this one was just a doozy all the way around. So I actually found an unsolved case and I was like, oh, she's gonna love this because usually all mine are solved. Well, except for the one in Japan. But anywho's, this case is the Oklahoma Girl Scouts murders. Have you heard about that?
I want to say I've heard about this before, but I don't know too much like details.
Okay, so let's get into it. So this was kind of like a shock to me, considering Oklahoma is like 30 minutes away. Well, one of the towns in Oklahoma is like 30 minutes away, but to get to Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, I believe it is like 2 hours. Anyways, this story is revolving around some Girl Scouts who went to Camp Scott on June 13th, 1977.
Oh,
That was such a long time. I know. So there was two bus loads full of girls, and they were all young girls. It's supposed to be like a little Girl Scouts camp retreat, what have you. Now, they were going to this Cherokee Indian Reserve, which was like northeast Oklahoma away from Tulsa. So these girls were going from Tulsa to northeast. It is located, yes, on a Cherokee reservation. Now, there was a little girl, and I want you to keep her name in mind. Her name is Denise Milner. Now, Denise Milner, she was a 10-year-old African American girl who did not want to go. She was like, no, I want to go home. This don't feel right. No. There was a lady named Michelle Hoffman who grew up going to camp there that was basically like a camp counselor, and she's like, no, come with me, we're gonna have a fun time, it's gonna be great. So because Denise was trusting of this lady, she went camping. Now, reports say that like to get to this campsite, you got to go through woods, like deep in the heart of woods, like deep into like narrow paths of woods. I think it was like, let me see, okay, I cannot remember, but I know you have to go so many miles down. So it was like basically isolated from the rest of the world. That's how it sounded. And it was described as being very beautiful in the day, but very disturbing at nighttime. So, how do you, so, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. So Denise gets to camp and she meets Michelle Goose, who's 9. I hope I said her last name right. I'm so sorry. And Lori Farmer, who was 8. Now, Hoffman introduced them and they quickly got like, they became friends, and bonded together or whatever. And they were all going to sleep together in their tent. Nighttime comes. There's a thunderstorm that cackles on this night, on the first night that they are here. It is dark. A girl named Amy Sullivan said it was so dark she didn't even know if her eyes were open or shut. That's how dark it was on the campgrounds. And let me just pause right here and say, to me, even as a person who does not have a kid, but with nieces and nephews, that just sounds already like a little red flag. You're
yeah.
gonna take these kids, especially, females, out here in this dark, desolate wood, and y'all can't see nothing at nighttime. You know what I'm saying? Like there, I cannot see it being okay for it to be that dark out there. There should have been like little lights, you know what I'm saying, or something to like light up the atmosphere for the girls so they weren't feeling so I guess, scared, because I would assume that that was a scary feeling, you know, to be in the dark like that.
Like this camp did, were there any like actual like cabins here at this location or what?
So from what I've read, everybody was sleeping in tents.
Okay.
Yes, everybody, all of the girls were in tents, and they had like tent markers where they had did it every year. And so, if I'm not mistaken, Denise, Michelle, and Lori slept in a tent that Hoffman had as a kid. And now that I say that, I'm like, that's, you'll see why I'm like. So, anyways, carrying on. The next morning, Miss Michelle, she gets up and she goes outside, and she's walking along the path. And what does she see? Denise is lying dead on top of her sleeping bag under this tree. Now, at first, she just stared because she couldn't grasp what was going on or happening. And then away from Denise, the other two girls, Lori and Michelle, were zipped up in their sleeping bags, and all of them were dead. Denise had been strangled and raped. Michelle and Lori had been hit with blunt force trauma, and they were also raped. Now, they were found 100 yards, well, roughly from 100 to 150 yards from their tents. Now, to pause again, because I'm just sitting here like, a thunderstorm is loud, right? Okay, cool. A thunderstorm is loud, but y'all didn't hear no screaming. Like, y'all, you know what I'm saying? Like, nobody heard nothing. Anywho, before we get to all of that, so after this, they quickly sent the girls home because it was, you know, like a triple homicide. Now, investigators determined it took place in the tents, and their bodies were moved to the trees. Now, Amy said when she got home, her grandma was there to pick her up, and she was like, "Grandma, what's happening? Like, you know, what's going on?" Her grandma was the one who told her they found, you know, 3 girls murdered at the camp, and she could not believe it. Amy Sullivan is an important person. That's why her name is stapled. So now let's come down to the evidence of what was found. In a nearby cave, there was found a roll of tape that matched tape that was on a red flashlight found at the crime scene. There were wedding photos of 2 women, and I believe that was it. The tents looked like they were broken into. It says the bags were emptied, tents were in disarray, the donut box was emptied out, and we're gonna staple a point right there too. Now, this led them to the suspect, Jean Leroy Hart, who was 33. Jean Leroy Hart is an escapee from prison. He was sentenced on a charge of 308 years in prison because he kidnapped 2 pregnant women and raped them. And he also had 4 counts of burglary against him. So he had escaped jail, and he was hiding out on the Indian reservation because he is an Indian. So those women in the photos were his wife or wives. Yes, it was 2 wedding photos. Now, he developed those photos in prison. I guess he just wanted to take them with him when he escaped prison. I don't know. So they tracked him down to a remote cabin in the woods that he was staying at. And upon further digging, apparently that cabin belonged to a local Indian medicine man. That's where he was staying. So they tracked him down. They captured him on April 6, 1978. And the first thing he told them was, "I did not kill those girls." So, yes, he goes to trial, and he basically got acquitted. Like, they were split down the middle. And the reason why was because the community did not believe that Hart was guilty of this crime. The community felt like the police was the ones covering it up to get back at Hart. They even went so far that the tribe donated $12,500 to help this man's cause. Yes. what you gonna say? Oh, okay. So even though he was found not guilty for this particular case, he still had to go back to jail to finish off his 308-year prison sentence. So they were going to, I guess, refight the case, but they could not because just 2 months later, Hart died in prison from a heart attack while he was exercising outside. Now, I feel like that is a little too convenient, but to this day, it still remains an open case. Now, DNA testing was done back in 2022, and all 3 out of 5 counts of the DNA went back to Hart to say that he is the victim. Now, I mean, not the victim, Lord have mercy, he is the murderer. So there was a sheriff, Reed, who said from the moment he found out about this case and knew of Hart's involvement, he believed he was guilty 100%. So even though the case is open, he believes that Hart did it. Now, updates that I've seen so far, Amy Sullivan has went back to Oklahoma since she has grown up, and she has this series on Hulu called Keeper of the Ashes, where she is actually interviewing people and trying to piece together what happened that day on the campgrounds. The campgrounds themselves were shut down in 1988 and instead became hunting grounds, so no camp activity there. So Bentley Milliner, she did not go see, and she is the mother of Denise Milliner. So, and that's what I want to say. Denise was the only African American girl on this trip. And like that broke my heart so much. And it was her first time going camping. It was her first experience, and they wanted to make it special for her. Her mother did not go visit her grave for 40 years because she was distraught about what happened and she just couldn't go. But after 40 years in 2016, with her husband and her children, she went to visit the grave. Sherry and Bo, which are Lori's parents, they are still fighting for her justice. In 2018, they advocated to get the Marsy's Law passed, which protects pretty much victims, people who've been victimized. They also formed an Oklahoma chapter of parents murdered of the chapter is called Parents of Murdered Children. There we go. So they are still advocating for their daughter and still trying to fight for justice, finding out what really happened. Now, the sheriff's department is convinced that Hart was the guilty party. He was the one who did it. Now, in the evidence found, there was several notes that said kill, kill, kill them. And when Hoffman took it to the camp director to show them this, it was discovered that several girls in the camp wrote those notes. And when I read that, I was just like, that makes this even more suspicious to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, if all these people went to this camp reserve, all these little girls, any little girl is gonna scream when her tent is being ripped open in the dark of night like that. And you mean to tell me nobody heard nothing about what happened? And then there was a footprint, there was one random footprint after the thunderstorm that could not be traced to anybody. It was inconclusive. That's also what was happening. Some of the DNA that they tried to point to Hart was inconclusive. Now, when I read more of this, it was my personal opinion that because he had like 308 years of prison, it was kind of just like, yeah, we could put him back in jail. Like, he fit the description, Yeah. And so let me see, what else? What I was going to say, sorry to cut you off. The last thing I was going to say is, how would the children know to write those letters? If they really packed them up and sent them home the moment they knew about it, and not all the girls knew about it, how did they know to write the letters? You know what I'm saying?
Somebody told them to.
I mean, yeah, but then that goes back to the question, or it makes me believe it was an inside job. I feel like there is too much circumstances revolved around Hart. And I mean, dude was guilty. He shouldn't have escaped jail in the first place. Like, you were gonna die in there, but that's 308 years. But to just conveniently toss him back in jail once they found him in this, is like, I don't know. I don't know. The case just blows my mind, because it would have had to be somebody who knew regularly about the camp, in my mind, because nobody's gonna go out in a random thunderstorm, I would hope, and just start, you know what I'm saying, butchering people. And how would they find that tent? I'm just saying, it is just a lot that puzzles my brain about this case, and I'm just a little flabbergasted about it. Let me see. Um, yeah, like I said, all of it took place in the tents, and they were all victimized. And yeah, this is the case. This is what I have for you: pieces and fragments, because it's just an open case.
I'm flabbergasted right now. Okay, my question is, how many like children were there? Like when all this happened, like in total, how many kids were there?
So I could not find, because there were three articles that I was reading across, and only one quoted them. But the reason why I'm a little with them is because they got the date wrong, first of all. And like, their yard reference was like 50 yards off from another report. But the number that they gave of children was over 140 girls. So you mean to tell me over 140 girls are camping out here, and nobody knows anything, heard anything, and it's thunderstorming, and they are all in tents, and they just knew to go to their tents? You know what I'm saying? In a thunderstorm. I'm just not understanding. But yeah, over 140.
And okay, so back to like that, like those notes, those letters that were found, and it said that was some of the girls' handwriting. How were they able to even piece that back to the girls specifically?
Well, several of the girls admitted that it was
Oh,
them
okay.
who did it. So I'm sitting here like, and which is once again why I don't understand, because they made it seem like they loaded them up on this bus. They, sent them back home without word of what was happening. But several girls admitted to the letters. So that means some of them knew what had happened and took place. And then when I was trying to find out about more of the camp counselors, there were none. The only one who was like interviewed or said anything about it was Hoffman. And considering that she was the one who put those girls in that tent, and she was the one that found them the next morning, that just has me like, Hoffman. I mean, she probably is innocent, but I'm just saying, it's a little shady that all three, things trigger back to her, and nobody like questioned her further.
The math is not happening on that.
No, it is not. And so, like I said, this was a case that I was shocked. I had no words, but I really wanted to talk about it, because I feel like justice does deserve to be served for those girls, and even for Hart if he was framed. Let me see. What else did I? He was on the run for several years. Sheriff Reed to this day says that he's guilty. He's convinced since the moment he laid eyes on him, he was guilty. But yeah, and then like I said, for him to have a heart attack while working out on the prison yard, I've seen locked up, okay? I've seen a lot of locked ups. I see how the prison yards look. You cannot tell me as a grown woman that this man got in front of all these inmates and had a heart attack and nobody had nothing to say about it. Marissa, I'm just not convinced. I'm not. I feel like there was power plays all up in this thing. I'm convinced that the sheriffs covered it up, and I could be wrong. But like I say, the fact that they had inconclusive evidence, and just so many bewildering pieces to this case, I just feel like people know more from there than what they're letting
Did
on.
they do any like like blood test on the girls, like a toxicology thing to see if they hypothetically, well, not hypothetically, but if they could have been like drugged per se?
Well, no, I don't remember them saying anything about them being drugged, just that, like on the counts of semen that was found inside of them, unfortunately, it was a rape. And like I say, 3 of those 5 counts pointed back to Hoffman. But really, there was no like, the evidence was very little. What I read you like about the duct tape, not the duct tape, but the tape, the flashlight, and the pictures and the footprints, that was all that was found. That was it. Nothing else, was found. And the police are convinced that DNA testing was so advanced, only one out of like 1,444 men would have had that same sample of DNA. But I'm sitting here like, all these years later, and that's the best you could give these families? Like that is your reasoning for why this man is guilty. Yeah, yes. And so Lori's mother said that when he was found, because once again, he was found technically not guilty in this case anyways. And so the mom, Sherry, feels like there was no justice served. And she said she felt like her baby was just another name to them. And that is why she wanted to fight so hard for justice for parents who go through the same thing like this. And right on, lady, you should, because that's just not fair to have to take that. And the only reason he got back in jail was because of his other charges. So, yes. Yes. So if you know anything, if you've heard anything or seen anything, please let us know. When I was browsing, even tonight, the only updates they were saying is that, there's advanced DNA testing. And I'll have to go and look again, but I want to say DNA testing costed like over $20,000. And I'm just sitting here like, y'all are gonna ask them. And I mean, the community raised the money to pay for it, but $20,000, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's a lot of money. So, yeah,
It's so
that's the case
horrible.
tonight.
These poor families,
Yeah.
they deserve so much more than what was given in terms of justice, just for themselves and for their children. So that's horrible.
Yes, may they rest in peace. And like I said, Amy, I did not look at the preview of the show, but she seems to have like 7 or 8 episodes out. Like I said, it's called Keeper of the Ashes, and it's on Hulu. And she really wants justice for these girls to find out what happened. So, I mean, I was a little excited to see that because somebody who was there went back, for justice. And she even said when she wrote in her diary, she put down first there was 3 girls who died, and then she put killed, and that was the first time she had ever even heard of that word. And so, like, to have not only these girls killed, but the rest of these girls affected by what was supposed to be a fun trip. And this happened on the first night, the darkest night with a thunderstorm. This all took place on the first night of camp. The second morning is when they were found.
And how long was this camp supposed to like go on
It was
for?
supposed to be a 2-week trip. Mm-hmm. And that's why I'm just like, y'all, I'm mad at everybody. Like I say, counselors, because there should have been more staff. There is no way anybody can convince me, a former teacher, that like 5 or 6 people is enough for 140 girls. There is no way there shouldn't have been little lamps out there or something so you could see anything. What if a bear would come out there, or like a snake or any wild animal, and y'all just got these kids in the dark like this? That's why I don't like believe the camp directors and them as much as they are wanting to be believed. I'm just not buying it. It just makes me mad because, once again, I am a Black girl. So to hear about this only African baby, her first trip, she's going out here, and this is what she gets. Not only that, she was distrusting when she got out there. She didn't want to go, like, I think that's what haunts me the most about cases is like when you have that premonition in your gut to not do nothing, you know, you're always taught to listen to that. And just think like that baby had that inside of her and she went anyways, you know, because she was so young, she was persuaded. And that breaks my heart the most because she was new, like deep inside, she knew. And like I said, that it just blew my. Of course, let me clarify. I am sad for the other two girls too. I know I said as a black boy, like I'm sad for all of the girls, but I think hers stick with me the most because she had that premonition fear and she wanted to go back home, you know? So, like I say, it was a very emotional case, but I don't want to say I liked it. Are we allowed to say we like cases?
Say we're intrigued.
This case intrigued me. Okay. This case intrigued the hell out of me, even with the missing facts, because as many people was out there for y'all to come up with straws and like needles, I'm just appalled. I'm just appalled. But yes, Risa, do you have any last thing to say? Any final questions? I did research. Okay, I did hard
You
research.
did really good research on this, and I'm just like flabbergasted at how there's still like missing pieces, and there were so many people there, and all the events that happened, and then still just it was inconclusive on the person where it just enough evidence to where it should not be conclusive. Just oh my goodness. Thank you so much for sharing that case with
You're
us.
welcome.
And I hope someday these families do get their
Me
justice
too,
and may
man.
each and every one of these victims rest in peace.
Yes, yes, yes. And so, like I said, if you guys know anything, please let us know. I think it made me mad too to find out that it was a hunting ground now because it's like, well, any hope of evidence to go back, it is now destroyed. You know, like y'all turned this place into a hunting ground. And to me, that makes it even more suspicious because why wouldn't you just shut it down? You know, like why would you still allow people to hunt out there? I don't know. Maybe that's just me being a little bit too suspicious. But like I said, the math was not mathing for me. But yes, rest in peace to all the victims. And thank you guys so much for rocking with us for another case. Marissa takes it over next time, and we will see what she got cooking up. But until then, as always, I'm Dohi Sama,
Hi, Marissa.
and we are two
Girl
girls with the
with a
case. Goodbye, guys.